The black marble floor of the obsidian tower lobby gleamed like still water at midnight, reflecting the golden chandeliers overhead in a way that made me feel like I was walking through someone else's dream. The garment bags containing the custom linens for tonight's penthouse event felt heavier with every step. Flour dust still clung to my black apron from the morning prep shift. I'd rushed straight from the catering kitchen without time to change. I focused on that small embarrassment, anything to distract from the panic building in my chest. I'd been servicing the Obsidian accounts for 8 months now, always through the back service corridors, always invisible. Today, renovations had blocked my usual route. The concierge had directed me through the main entrance with a dismissive wave, as if it were no inconvenience at all. As if Austin might not be here. The lobby stretched before me like a gauntlet, all soaring ceilings and white marble columns that disappeared into shadow above. The air smelled of expensive perfume and the ridiculous orchid arrangements that cost more than my monthly rent. My worn sneakers made soft sounds against that perfect floor, announcing my presence, marking me as someone who didn't belong in this world of wealth and reflected light. I kept my head down, counting 19 steps to the private elevator. Then I could vanish up to the penthouse, deliver my materials, collect my $800 payment, and disappear back into my small, safe world. 19 steps. I could manage that. Chloe. The voice turned my blood to ice. I didn't stop walking. Maybe if I kept moving, he'd think he was mistaken. Maybe reality would bend just this once in my favor. Chloe, wait. I know that's you. Footsteps behind me, quick and purposeful. My pulse hammered in my throat as I clutched the garment bags tighter and walked faster. 12 steps to the elevator. Just 12 more steps. Don't you dare ignore me. His hand clamped on my shoulder, spinning me around with enough force that I stumbled, the portfolio bag sliding down my arm. Austin looked exactly as he had 8 months ago when I'd finally escaped. Sandy brown hair precisely styled, hazel eyes that had once seemed protective but now just looked hungry. He wore an expensive blazer, probably bought with the trust fund he pretended not to have. The familiar scent of his cologne made my stomach turn. I need to make my delivery, I said, proud that my voice barely shook. Please let me go. Let you go. His laugh was sharp. Like you let me go? Just vanished one night, changed your number, had your friend lie to me about where you moved. We were supposed to build a life together, Chloe. We were never going to build anything. I took a step back, trying to create distance. I left the key. I explained everything. You left a note. He spat the words. 18 months together, and you leave a note on the counter. Do you have any idea what that did to me? How that made me feel? The thing about Austin was that everything always circled back to him, his feelings, his vision of our future, how my choices affected his narrative. I'd spent 18 months trying to make myself smaller, quieter, more acceptable. Canceling plans with friends when he decided he needed me. Giving up the sketches for my own business because he said I should be realistic. The day I'd moved out while he was at his weekly poker game, taking only what I'd brought in, had been the first time I'd breathed freely in over a year. I'm sorry you were hurt, I managed, aiming for calm despite my racing heart. But we weren't right for each other. You know that. What I know is that you owe me a real conversation. Face to face. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Austin was too smart for that, but firm enough to communicate that I wasn't leaving until he allowed it. You're going to make me drop these materials, and they're worth 2 weeks of savings I can't afford to replace. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me. My vision narrowed, the lobby fading as my focus tunneled to his hand on my wrist, to the familiar sensation of being trapped. This was how it had always been, his needs, his timeline, his control disguised as concern. I'd promised myself never again. Let go of me. The words came out stronger than I expected, sharp enough that a businessman passing nearby glanced our way. Austin's expression shifted, his grip loosening slightly, but not releasing. "We're making a scene, Chloe. You hate scenes. Just come sit with me for 10 minutes. We'll talk like adults, and then you can make your delivery." "I don't want to talk." "Too bad." His fingers tightened. "You don't get to just walk away from 18 months without giving me closure." The elevator bank was only 10 feet away. Polished brass doors, one set slightly open, the interior glowing with warm light. If I could just break free. If I could reach those doors before he caught up. I yanked my arm back hard, using the weight of the garment bags for momentum. Austin's grip slipped just enough. I lunged forward, sneakers skidding on marble, portfolio bags swinging wildly. The elevator doors were closing. I threw myself through the gap and crashed directly into midnight itself. Strong arms caught me before I hit the floor, one hand steadying my waist while the other somehow intercepted both the falling portfolio bag and the garment bags sliding from my grip. The impossible coordination of it registered dimly, but what stopped my breath entirely was the man himself. Tall, well over 6 feet, with pale skin that seemed to glow in the elevator's golden light. Platinum blonde hair pulled back in a half bun, revealing a face too angular to be merely handsome, too perfect to be entirely human. He wore a tailored black suit with intricate silver embroidery on the lapels that caught the light like trapped stars. But it was his eyes that paralyzed me. Pale gray, almost silver, ancient and knowing, and fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Steady," he said, his voice low and accented with something I couldn't place. "European maybe, but older somehow." "Chloe." Austin's shout shattered the moment. His hand shot between the closing doors, triggering the sensor. They reopened with a soft chime. The stranger, impossibly still holding both me and all my materials without visible effort, shifted his position with fluid grace. Suddenly, he stood between me and the doors, his broad shoulders blocking Austin's view of me entirely. He didn't release me. His hand remained steady at my waist, grounding and possessive all at once. "I believe," the stranger said quietly, "the lady made her intentions clear." Austin's face appeared around his shoulder, flushed and furious. "This is a private conversation. You need to." He stopped mid-sentence. The stranger had simply looked at him, those pale eyes meeting Austin straight on. Something flickered in that gaze, something cold and predatory and infinitely patient. Something that didn't belong in a human face. Austin went white. He actually stumbled backward, his hand jerking away from the doors as if burned. The elevator doors slid shut with a whisper of finality. The ascent began, smooth and silent. I was alone with midnight, and my heart was racing for entirely different reasons now. The elevator lurched to a stop between floors, the lights dimming to a soft amber glow that made the small space feel even more intimate. My rescuer finally released me, stepping back just enough to give me room to breathe, but not enough to feel safe. He set my materials down with care that seemed oddly deliberate for someone who'd just performed an impossible catch. "The renovations," he said, as if reading my confusion. "They've been causing electrical issues all week." He pressed the emergency call button with one long finger, but didn't seem particularly concerned about our suspension. I pressed myself against the elevator wall, finally getting a full look at him. The silver embroidery on his suit formed intricate patterns, flora and thorns intertwined. His hands were elegant, almost aristocratic, with a single silver ring on his right hand that looked ancient. Everything about him whispered wealth, but the old kind. The inherited kind that didn't need to announce itself. "Thank you," I managed. "For that." "You're welcome, Chloe." His use of my name sent a chill down my spine. At my expression, he gestured toward the garment bags. "Marchand Catering. Your name is embroidered on the apron." His pale eyes held mine. I own this building. I noticed the people who move through it. Something about his tone, not apologetic, simply factual, made my racing heart slow slightly. Dorian Eldrick, he offered, extending his hand. I hesitated, then shook it. His grip was cool, firm, and he held on a fraction longer than necessary. You have excellent timing, Mr. Eldrick.
Dorian.
He released my hand, tilting his head slightly. And timing had little to do with it. That man downstairs, he's been watching you since you entered the lobby. The way he approached you, something dark flickered across his expression. That wasn't a chance encounter. My throat tightened.
No.
It wasn't. Former lover? The blunt question should have offended me, but there was no prurience in it. Just cool assessment.
Ex-fiancé.
I left 8 months ago. He doesn't seem to accept that. Austin doesn't accept anything that damages his narrative. The words came out bitter. I was supposed to be the supportive wife in waiting. Give up my silly baking job. Focus on being the right kind of partner for his future. I laughed without humor. The kind who doesn't have dreams that compete with his comfort. Dorian's gaze sharpened with interest. Dreams? I don't know why I told him. Maybe because we were suspended between floors, in a space outside normal reality. Maybe because he'd already seen me at my most desperate, and there seemed little point in pretense. Maybe because those pale eyes seemed to strip away all my careful defenses. My own event planning company, I said quietly. I've been saving for 2 years. I need $50,000 for startup costs, insurance, licensing, initial inventory, a small office space. I'm at $32,000 now. I gestured to the garment bags. Every delivery gets me closer. 2 weeks of savings in tonight's payment alone. And Austin objects to this dream? Austin objects to anything that isn't about Austin. I wrapped my arms around myself. When I told him I wanted to start my own business, he laughed. Said I should be realistic. That I was good at following recipes, not running companies. The memory still stung. He wanted me smaller, quieter, more manageable. But you left anyway. I left because I realized I was disappearing. I met Dorian's eyes. One compromise at a time. One canceled plan. One dismissed dream. One, let's talk about this later, that never came. I was vanishing into his vision of who I should be. Dorian was silent for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. And now he's found you again. He's been texting from different numbers for months, showing up at the bakery where I used to work until I quit and moved to Marchand. I thought I'd finally lost him. My voice cracked slightly. I thought I was safe. Men like him don't stop, Chloe. Dorian's voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath it. They view persistence as devotion, boundaries as challenges. You're leaving wounded his pride, and he'll escalate until he's restored his sense of control. The truth of it settled over me like ice water. I'll get a restraining order. A piece of paper against a man who already ignores your boundaries? One elegant eyebrow lifted. You're clever enough to know how that ends. My hands clenched into fists. Then what am I supposed to do? Keep running? Change my name? Give up everything I've worked for?
No.
Dorian stepped closer, and the shadows in the elevator seemed to deepen around him. You accept protection that Austin cannot challenge. Resources he cannot match. A claim he would not dare contest. The air felt thicker suddenly. I don't understand. Be seen as mine, Dorian said simply. Publicly. Convincingly. For 6 months, allow me to court you. The elevator shuddered back to life before I could respond, the lights brightening as we resumed our ascent. Dorian gathered my materials with that same unsettling grace, holding the garment bags and portfolio as if they weighed nothing at all. You don't have to answer now, he said as the doors opened onto the penthouse level. But you should know, I've been aware of you for some time. The Ashford wedding 3 months ago. You transformed their rooftop space into something extraordinary. I own that property. My breath caught. You were there? Briefly. His pale eyes held mine. Long enough to notice the coordinator who saw potential in exposed brick and string lights where others saw obstacles. He reached into his jacket and produced a card, heavy black stock with silver lettering. Just his name and a phone number. I didn't know until tonight that I would decide you were meant to be mine. But I'm not a man who hesitates once I've made a decision. The certainty in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like gravity. Think about it, Dorian said, handing me the card along with my materials. But don't think too long. Austin will be waiting. He was right. When I emerged into the lobby 40 minutes later, payment envelope clutched in my flour-dusted hand, Austin was there, pacing near the entrance, phone pressed to his ear. I froze. A hand touched my elbow. A man in a dark suit, older, with silver-threaded hair and eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Bennett?
I'm John.
Mr. Eldrick asked me to see you home safely. I should have questioned it. Should have been alarmed by this stranger, who somehow knew my name, knew I'd need an escape. But Austin had spotted me, was moving toward the elevators with purpose. Yes, I whispered. Please. John guided me smoothly toward a side exit, his body positioned between me and Austin's approaching figure. A black car waited at the curb, luxury sedan with tinted windows. He opened the door, and I slid inside like I was being rescued from a kidnapping. Which perhaps I was. Your friend has been watching the building for the past half hour, John said as he pulled into traffic, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. Making calls. Growing agitated. Mr. Eldrick's interest is the only reason you're safe right now, Ms. Bennett. I hope you understand that. The card felt heavy in my pocket. At home, my tiny apartment above the defunct bookstore felt smaller than ever. I locked both deadbolts and sat on my second-hand couch, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. The search results for Dorian Eldrick were strange. Property records going back decades, the Obsidian Tower, the Ashford Building, estates on the city's edge. But no social media.
No interviews.
Just grainy archived photos from charity galas and vintage society pages, and in every single one, spanning what looked like 40 years, he appeared exactly the same. Ageless.
My phone rang.
Maya. Okay, don't freak out, my best friend said without preamble. But I went down a rabbit hole on your mysterious elevator man, and Chloe? The forums are saying he's a vampire. Like, capital V vampire. And not just any vampire, they're calling him a king. I looked at the black card on my coffee table, at the silver lettering that seemed to catch light that wasn't there. Yeah, I whispered. That actually makes sense. The estate was everything the Obsidian Tower wasn't, sprawling Gothic architecture softened by climbing ivy and modern touches that kept it from feeling like a museum. John drove me through iron gates that opened silently, up a winding drive lined with old-growth trees. The house itself seemed to emerge from shadow, all stone and arched windows that glowed with warm light. Dorian met me at the entrance, dressed more casually now in black trousers and a charcoal shirt, though he still moved with that predatory grace. Thank you for coming. I'm not sure I had much choice. I followed him through halls decorated with art that looked original and probably priceless. After Maya's research spiral, I needed to know if I was losing my mind. He led me to a dining room that managed to be both grand and intimate, a table set for 2 near floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens lit by strategically placed lights. A meal was already laid out, though I noticed only one place setting had food. I stopped in the doorway. Are you actually a vampire? Dorian turned to face me, and something in his expression shifted. The careful civility dropped away, revealing something ancient underneath. Yes. The blunt honesty stole my breath. I'd expected deflection, perhaps mockery. Not this elegant confirmation. How old? 843 years this autumn. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. The food is for you, I don't eat, but I remember enough about being human to appreciate good preparation. I sat because my legs felt unsteady. The supernatural world. It's real. All of it. Most of it. Dorian settled across from me with fluid grace. Vampires, certainly. Other things. We exist alongside your world, carefully hidden. Most humans live their entire lives without knowing. His pale eyes caught the candlelight. But you asked me here for truth, so I'll give it to you. I am what your friends' forums claim. Old, powerful, and yes, some call me a king. I rule this city's vampire population and the territories beyond. And you want to court me. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Why? Because you interest me. He said it simply, as if it explained everything. Because I saw something in you that night, not just beauty or talent, though you have both. I saw steel. Someone who'd rather crash through elevator doors than submit to being controlled. He leaned forward slightly. And because I can offer you something no human protection could provide. The arrangement. 6 months, Dorian confirmed. You would live here, in your own private wing with complete autonomy. No financial cost. In fact, I'll provide the capital and connections to launch Bennett and company immediately. In exchange, you appear publicly as mine. We attend events together. You're seen at my side. The relationship looks genuine and exclusive. And Austin will never touch you again. Something cold flickered through Dorian's expression. In vampire culture, being courted by someone of my position means you are absolutely untouchable. Any threat to you becomes a threat to me, and no one, human or otherwise, is foolish enough to make that challenge. I studied the meal before me, untouched. This sounds too good. There has to be a catch. The catch is that my world is dangerous, Dorian said quietly. You would be entering a society of immortal beings with complex politics and ancient grudges. You would be seen as mine, which grants protection but also paints a target. And 6 months living as my companion, even falsely, will change you. You can't unsee what you'll witness. But I'd be safe from Austin. Completely. And I could build my business. I'd ensure it. I looked up at him. This impossible, ancient being who'd appeared in an elevator like fate itself. Why are you really doing this? You could have anyone. Why me? Dorian was quiet for a long moment. Because in 800 years I've learned to recognize rare things. And you, Chloe Bennett, are rare. You deserve the chance to become everything you're meant to be, without fear cutting you down before you begin. His eyes held mine. I can give you that chance. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. I thought of Austin waiting in lobbies. Of locked doors that didn't feel safe anymore. Of 18 months shrinking myself and 8 months running. Of a dream that would take years to achieve on my own, if I survived that long. I thought of Dorian's hand at my waist, steady and certain. Of shadows bending toward him like loyal subjects. Of the way he looked at Austin with those ancient eyes and made a grown man recoil in terror. 6 months, I said. And then I'm free to leave? With my blessing and a thriving business. And you won't feed on me? Or try to turn me into a vampire? A slight smile touched his lips. Not without explicit consent, which I will not ask for during our arrangement. I took a breath, released it. Then yes, I accept. I moved into the estate on a gray Saturday morning, my entire life fitting into 4 suitcases and 3 boxes that looked absurdly small in the grand entrance hall. John carried them without comment, but a woman with silver-streaked hair and unnaturally golden eyes, introduced as Helena, the house manager, directed him with quiet authority. "The East Wing, Miss Bennet," she said, her deference so profound it made me uncomfortable. "The king has prepared himself for your comfort." The king. They all called him that, the staff who moved through the halls with varying degrees of humanity. Some, like Helena, had tells, eyes that caught light wrong, movements too fluid, voices that resonated with harmonics that shouldn't exist. Others seemed entirely human but treated me with the same careful respect, as if I were something precious and breakable. "The king's chosen," I heard one whisper as I passed. My wing was breathtaking, a suite of rooms with soaring ceilings, arched windows overlooking the gardens, and furniture that managed to blend Gothic elegance with modern comfort. A sitting room with a fireplace, a bedroom with a canopy bed and soft linens. And my breath caught, a complete office setup with a desk, filing cabinets, design software already installed on a new computer, and shelves waiting to be filled. Dorian appeared in the doorway as I stood staring. "Too much." "It's perfect," I whispered. "It's too perfect. You'll earn it." His voice was certain. "I've arranged meetings with a business attorney and an accountant for next week. The seed capital will be transferred to your business account tomorrow, $50,000 to start, interest-free. Consider it an investment in someone whose vision I believe in." Over the following weeks, I found my rhythm in the Gothic sanctuary. Mornings in the library, working on my business plan surrounded by books that smelled of leather and time. Afternoons in the gardens, where twilight brought out night-blooming flowers and the occasional glimpse of staff members who definitely weren't human. Evenings in the massive kitchen, where I cooked meals I didn't need to make while Dorian watched from the doorway, asking questions about techniques and flavors he could no longer taste but remembered with startling clarity. He never intruded, never demanded. The office was mine, the schedule mine, the decisions mine. He provided resources, introduced me to a legal consultant who specialized in small businesses, connected me with vendors who offered preferential rates, opened doors I didn't even know existed, but always stepped back and let me walk through them on my own terms. "You're not what I expected," I told him one night, looking up from my laptop where I'd been designing my company logo. "What did you expect? Someone who wanted to control me. Like Austin, just with better manners and supernatural powers." Dorian's expression darkened. "Austin, incidentally, won't be a concern anymore." My hands stilled on the keyboard. "What does that mean?" "It means some of my people had a conversation with him. A very clear conversation about boundaries and consequences." His pale eyes met mine. "He's relocating to his parents' vacation home in Colorado. Indefinitely." I should have felt guilty. Should have questioned what conversation meant. Instead, I felt only a wave of relief so powerful it made my eyes sting. "Thank you. You don't need to thank me for basic decency, Chloe." He moved closer, his presence filling the space without crowding it. Protecting what's mine, even temporarily mine, is not a favor. It's simply what I do. But the way he said mine didn't sound like possession. It sounded like sanctuary. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt safe enough to stop running and start building. The stylist arrived 3 days before the conclave, a tall, androgynous figure named Sylvain, whose eyes shifted color with the light and whose fingers moved over fabric with supernatural precision. They brought garments that looked like they belonged in museums and jewels that probably did. "You are representing the king," Sylvain said, draping midnight blue silk across my shoulders. "This is armor and declaration, not costume. Every vampire in that cathedral will be watching, judging, looking for weakness." Their eyes met mine in the mirror. "We give them none." The final choice was a gown of deep emerald velvet that made my dark hair look richer and my skin luminous. It was cut to suggest rather than reveal, elegant and untouchable. Sylvain wove silver chains through my hair and clasped a necklace of black pearls around my throat, a deliberate echo of Dorian's aesthetic. "Perfect," they murmured. "You look like a queen." The conclave was held in a cathedral I hadn't known existed, accessible only through a hidden entrance beneath the city's oldest church. Stone steps descended into darkness, then opened into a vast underground space of soaring Gothic arches and stained glass illuminated by what couldn't possibly be candlelight, but looked like it. And it was filled with vampires. I felt them before I saw them. The weight of ancient gazes, the predatory stillness, the sense of being evaluated by beings who'd survived centuries by reading threats and opportunities with perfect accuracy. My hand tightened on Dorian's arm. "Steady," he murmured, his hand covering mine. "You're with me. That makes you untouchable." He moved through the gathering with absolute authority, and I watched him transform. This wasn't the careful, almost gentle being who watched me cook in his kitchen. This was the king, commanding, lethal, every inch of him radiating power that made other vampires step aside without conscious thought. His hand never left my back, possessive and protective, guiding me through introductions to beings whose names came with titles like Elder and Lord, and whose eyes tracked me like I was fascinating prey. "Dorian." A voice cut through the murmured conversations, smooth and cold. "How delightful to see you've brought entertainment." The vampire who approached was beautiful in the way winter was beautiful, all sharp edges and cruel elegance. Platinum hair, ice blue eyes, and a smile that promised pain. He wore white, a deliberate contrast to Dorian's black, and moved with a grace that felt like a threat. "Cassius." Dorian's voice could have frozen blood. "This is Chloe Bennett. My companion." "Your pet human, you mean?" Cassius's gaze raked over me, with calculated dismissiveness. "How quaint. Tell me, dear, does he explain what being his companion truly means in our world? Or does he let you believe in pretty fairy tales about protection and courtship?" "Careful." Dorian's hand slid around my waist, drawing me against his side with deliberate possessiveness. The shadows in the cathedral seemed to deepen, bending toward him. "You're addressing what's mine. For now." Cassius's smile sharpened. "But humans are so fragile, aren't they? So easily broken. I do hope you're prepared for the realities of our world, my dear. It would be tragic if Dorian's experiment ended poorly." The threat was unmistakable. I felt Dorian tense beside me, felt the dangerous shift in the air as other vampires noticed the exchange and drew closer, scenting conflict. "I'm exactly where I'd choose to be," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "And I'm perfectly capable of understanding reality, Lord Thorne, including the reality that you're trying to undermine Dorian by targeting me." Cassius's eyes widened fractionally, surprise quickly masked. "How perceptive." "She is," Dorian said softly, and the pride in his voice sent warmth through my chest. "Which is one of many reasons she's mine." He turned us away from Cassius with deliberate dismissal, his hand still firm at my waist. But I felt the tension in him, saw the way other vampires watched with newfound interest. And I realized, with perfect clarity, that I trusted him. Not as part of our arrangement, but genuinely. Completely. The performance had stopped being a performance, and I wasn't sure when that shift had happened. Only that it terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. 3 months into our arrangement, I woke to find frost patterns on my windows that hadn't been there when I fell asleep. Dorian stood in my doorway, silhouetted against the pre-dawn darkness. "I couldn't sleep," he said quietly. "An old habit I haven't broken in 8 centuries. I thought I'd give you something beautiful to wake to." The frost formed intricate flowers and vines, delicate as lace, already melting in the warmth of my room. It was the kind of casual magic that had become routine, small gestures that felt enormous. His hand lingering on mine when he passed me coffee. The way he'd started sitting closer during our evening conversations, close enough that I could feel the unnatural coolness of his skin. The touches that had begun as performance and shifted into something tender, deliberate, real. "Tell me about your first winter," I said, pulling a blanket around my shoulders. He settled into the chair by my window, and in the growing light, began to speak. About a village in what was now Poland, about a family he could barely remember, about the vampire who'd turned him during a winter so brutal that immortality had seemed like mercy rather than curse. He spoke of regrets, lovers who'd aged while he remained frozen, friends turned to dust, the weight of watching centuries pass while staying fundamentally unchanged. "Loneliness," he said softly, "is the true curse of immortality. Not the blood or the sunlight or the things we give up. It's the isolation. The knowledge that everyone you allow yourself to care for will leave, one way or another." "Is that why you made this arrangement?" I asked. "To avoid caring?" His pale eyes met mine. "I made this arrangement because I thought I could control it. Protect you, satisfy my curiosity, and walk away unscathed when the 6 months ended." A bitter smile touched his lips. "I was wrong. I haven't been unscathed since the moment you crashed into that elevator looking furious and terrified and absolutely magnificent." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Dorian, you're thriving here," he continued, standing to pace. "Your business plan is nearly complete. Bennett and Company will launch next month with a client roster that includes some of the city's most influential families, human and otherwise. You've navigated my world with more grace than vampires twice your age." He stopped, turning to face me. "And somewhere between frost patterns and watching you negotiate with century-old beings without flinching, I stopped pretending this was temporary." I rose, the blanket falling away, and crossed to him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that in over 300 years, I haven't felt like this. I'm saying that the thought of you leaving in 3 months makes eternity feel unbearable." His cool hand lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching, as if he was afraid. "I'm saying I've fallen for you, Chloe Bennett, and I don't know what to do with that." I closed the distance between us, pressing my palm to his chest where a heartbeat should be. "Then don't do anything. Just feel it. With me." "You don't understand what you're asking." His voice roughened. "In my world, there is a bond, a formal tie that would connect us in ways that transcend any human relationship. It's not marriage. It's not even immortality, though it would extend your life, strengthen you, tie your existence to mine in ways I barely understand anymore." He finally touched me, fingers trembling against my jaw. "And once made, it cannot be unmade. Ever." "Are you offering that?" "I'm terrified to offer that," Dorian admitted. "Because it would mean admitting this isn't an arrangement anymore. That I want you not for 6 months, but for as long as you'll have me. And I don't know if you're ready to hear that, or if I'm ready to survive your answer if it's no." I looked up at this ancient, powerful being who'd created frost gardens just to see me smile, who'd protected me without possessing me, who'd given me everything I needed to build my dream while asking for nothing but my presence. And I realized the truth that had been building for weeks. "Ask me?" I whispered. "What?" "Ask me properly. Not in fear, not in uncertainty. When you're ready to hear my answer, whatever it is, ask me to accept the bond." I rose on my toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cool lips. "But ask me when you're certain, Dorian. Because when I say yes, I want you to believe it." His eyes widened. "When you say yes?" "I'm already sure," I said, stepping back with a small smile. "Now you just need to catch up." I left him standing in the dawn light, frost patterns melting on the windows, and the weight of possibility hanging between us like a promise, waiting to be spoken aloud. John appeared in the library doorway 2 weeks later, his usual composure shattered. "My lord, Cassius Thorne has taken Elena Vasquez." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I looked up from my contracts, confusion shifting to ice-cold terror. Elena, my business partner, my friend, hired just last week to help launch Bennett and Company. "What?" I whispered. Dorian had gone utterly still. In that way, that meant the predator had awakened. "Explain." "She was taken from her apartment an hour ago. Thorne's messenger delivered terms. He wants the waterfront properties. All of them." John's eyes flicked to me. "He says if you refuse to negotiate, Miss Bennett is next." The shadows in the room began to move, writhing darkness that bent toward Dorian, like living things responding to their master's rage. His eyes had gone completely black, and the air pressure changed as if a storm had manifested inside the estate. "He took someone under my protection to manipulate me." Dorian's voice was soft, terrible. "We don't negotiate with terrorists." "John, gather the enforcers. Helena, take Chloe to the sanctuary below. No one enters without my explicit permission."
No.
"Elena is there because of me." Dorian was in front of me instantly, hands framing my face. "If he takes you, I will raise this city to ash, and thousands will die. You are the only thing that would make me lose control completely. Do you understand?" The raw truth in his voice cut through my protest. "Bring her back safely. Please." "I swear it." He pressed a cold kiss to my forehead, trembling with barely leashed rage. "Helena."
Now.
The sanctuary was a reinforced chamber deep beneath the estate, lined with pulsing protective symbols. I paced for what felt like hours, Elena's face flashing through my mind, her excitement about our first booking, the hug she'd given me yesterday. When the door finally opened, Dorian stood there, shirt torn and marked with dark stains. But beside him, supported by John, was Elena, pale, trembling, but alive. "Oh, God." I caught my friend as she stumbled forward. "Are you okay?"
"I'm fine," Elena whispered, shaking.
They didn't have time. Dorian was just there. She swallowed hard. "I need to sit down. Get her medical attention," Dorian said quietly. "And contact her family." As John led Elena away, I took Dorian's hand and led him to the moonlit courtyard where jasmine bloomed. He stood rigid, not meeting my eyes. "This is what being connected to me means," he said finally, voice raw. "There will always be rivals who see you as leverage. I brought this danger into your life. You saved her." I placed my hands on his chest. "You didn't negotiate, didn't hesitate. You brought her home safe. This time. But there will be other threats, Chloe." "I know." I looked up steadily. "I've seen the danger, understood the cost. And I choose it anyway. I choose you." "You can't possibly. 2 weeks ago, you wanted me to be certain." "Well, I am." I gripped his shirt tighter. "I understand that being yours means supernatural danger, that I'll be used as leverage, that safety isn't guaranteed. But I also understand that you'll move heaven and earth to protect what's yours." Tears pricked my eyes. "And I'm terrified, but not as much as the thought of walking away terrifies me." Dorian's control shattered. He pulled me against him desperately, burying his face in my hair. "I love you. I've loved you since you crashed into that elevator looking like you'd fight the devil himself. I love your strength, your refusal to be diminished. You're not a monster." I cupped his face. "You're Dorian. Ancient and powerful and dangerous, yes, but also tender and protective and mine." "Yours," he agreed, voice raw. "If you'll have me."
Truly.
"With a bond that will tie us together for as long as you live, and perhaps beyond. Ask me again in 50 years about forever, I said, smiling through tears.
But for now, yes.
Yes to the bond. Yes to you. Yes to whatever comes as long as we face it together. He kissed me under the moonlight, and I felt something shift in the air, a promise being forged that would outlast mortality itself. Forever, then, Dorian murmured. I am yours, Chloe Bennet, and you are mine. Forever. I agreed, and tasted eternity in his kiss. 18 months after a desperate collision in a golden elevator, I stood in the center of the Ashford rooftop, the same space where Dorian had first noticed me, and surveyed my kingdom. Bennet and Company. Events had transformed the venue into an enchanted garden for tonight's wedding. String lights wove through trellises heavy with roses. Tables dressed in linens I designed myself gleamed under candlelight, and the subtle protective wards Dorian's people had helped me place ensured both human and supernatural guests could celebrate in safety. The bride's mother wants to adjust the seating chart again, Elena said, appearing at my elbow with her tablet and an exasperated smile. Third time today. Tell her we'll handle it. I squeezed my business partner's hand, still grateful every day that she'd stayed after that terrifying night with Cassius. She knew everything now about Dorian, about the supernatural world, about the fact that her boss was bonded to the Vampire King. And she'd chosen to stay anyway, becoming the most sought-after coordinator in a city where half our clients had fangs. Mrs. Eldrick? One of the catering staff approached hesitantly. The champagne tower is ready for your approval. Mrs. Eldrick. I still felt a thrill hearing it, even after 6 months of formal bonding, first in the ancient vampire ceremony where Dorian had spoken words in a language dead for centuries, then in the private human wedding where I'd worn emerald velvet and he'd worn silver embroidery, and we'd promised each other everything that mattered. I'll check it now. I moved through the space with a confidence I'd spent years building, making adjustments, solving problems, ensuring perfection. You're magnificent when you work, a familiar voice said from the shadows near the bar. I turned to find Dorian, leaning against the wall in his black suit, pale eyes tracking my every movement with that intensity that still made my heart race. You're supposed to be networking with the supernatural guests. I'd rather watch you command a room. He crossed to me in 3 fluid strides, cool hand finding mine. Do you have any idea how incredible you are? How far you've come from the woman counting steps in a lobby? I thought about that terrified version of myself, running from Austin, clutching event materials, convinced she had to stay small and quiet to stay safe. Then I looked around at the empire I'd built, at the business that bore my name, at the life I'd claimed despite every obstacle. I had help, I said softly. You had talent, I simply gave room to grow. Dorian lifted my hand, pressing a kiss to the simple silver band on my finger, twin to the one he wore. The most dangerous being you ever met, and I turned out to be your greatest protector. And my greatest love. I rose on my toes to kiss him, not caring that guests were starting to arrive. The wedding began, and I moved through the evening with my partner at my side, not hovering, not controlling, simply present, supporting, watching me shine in the world we'd built together. I'd run into that elevator fleeing one man's possession and crashed into another's protection. And somehow, impossibly, I'd found everything I'd been searching for: safety, success, partnership, and a love that would last as long as I chose it to. Perhaps, I thought, catching Dorian's eye across the crowded rooftop as he smiled at me with ancient devotion, perhaps forever wasn't such a terrifying prospect after all. If this story pulled you in, don't forget to like this video, drop your favorite scene in the comments, and subscribe. Tomorrow's story is already waiting in the shadows. Thanks for watching.